Listener discretion is advised. This podcast may include profanity and discussion of sensitive topics. Any opinions expressed are those of the speaker and do not reflect the opinions of any other person or entity. Welcome to episode 23 of The Real Future. I'm photographer John Nyboer, and I started this podcast to share the stories, history, and styles behind street dance, the world's largest arts movement. My guest today is Seji Gaerlan. Seji is a founding member of the Syde Project dance crew and the producer of the Orange County-based Bridge the Gap jams. I photographed 2 of these events and was impressed by the spirit and quality of the jams. I invited him in to ask about his personal story and the motivation behind Bridge the Gap. He's a really thoughtful observer of the Southern California dance community and of life in general, and we got pretty deep into discussion about both the dance world and his experience as a kid moving here from the Philippines. Seji is both humble and audacious, and I think you'll enjoy our conversation. So let's get into the real future with Seji Gaerlan. We're rolling.
Perfect.
Seji Gaerlan.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the real future.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm really looking forward to this because, I've worked with you a couple times now, and I've seen you throw great events and you've got really good energy, and I know you're Southern California based, but otherwise I don't really know much about you, so this should be kind of fun. I got you flowers. Everybody gets flowers.
Oh, thank you.
Right? Like figuratively and literally. Got some carnations, so
Carnation flowers.
I always support my neighbors. And
Yeah.
it's a good mutual
Good
thing.
relationship. Yeah.
Actually.
I see it.
But I want to start by asking you, I ask everybody this, what is your first dance memory?
Ooh, my first dance memory. I actually say this a lot to pretty much everyone that has asked me about this. My first dance memory was back when I was in 6th grade in the Philippines. We would do this this kind of like mock festivals in our school, where my whole entire grade level would learn dances from our teachers. And my teachers are not really actual dancers. They would just try to make a choreography based off some fiesta type music in the Philippines, and we would just kind of perform that in front of our parents. And yeah, that was the extent of the first time I remember actually dancing.
How old are you at this time?
6th grade. So how old would
Okay,
6th graders be?
that's good enough.
Yeah.
Sixth grade age. That's just want to get a general idea. So this brings up an awesome subject, at least as far as I'm concerned. There's clearly a very deep connection with Filipinos and dance and singing.
Yeah.
That is, larger than a lot of cultures.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in actually this kind of situation. Do you feel, were you in a public school?
I was actually in a private school. I was
school.
one of very privileged people in there.
Okay.
So yeah.
Was it in Manila?
Part of Manila, Metro Manila area. I went to College of St. Benilde, which is kind of one of the more, I would say, high-end type schools in the Philippines. Yeah.
Do you feel like most schools, regardless of public or private, were doing some form of dance in the classroom?
Yes, I would say so. The arts in the Philippines is very, very much appreciated in there. But then of course there's still a heavy emphasis of the maths and the sciences and everything like that. But in terms of just our culture as people, we do have a huge appreciation for anything that's just kind of entertainment in general.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about what you said is that the teachers that were teaching you didn't even really know how to dance, but this must mean they were familiar enough with the basics just because it's in the culture to manage to do something.
Yeah.
Like if I had to go teach, I'm not a mathematician, I could go teach addition to, to first graders.
Yeah.
It seems like kind of like that.
Yeah, pretty much. They know how they got rhythm, and they know how to kind of remember moves. So they would just I remember the teachers would just kind of gather together and just kind of brainstorm on what would be a cool move to do, and it would be just the most basic put your arms to a T and then put it up and things like that. So it's not they know how to do a bounce or anything like that, but it's more so just it's more like aerobics, to be honest.
So that's a memory. Is that were you just like from that moment into it, or
Oh, if that's how I actually got into dance. No, what actually got me to actually really be in dance was back in 2009, I would say. I first moved here from the Philippines.
in 2009?
Yes, in
Okay.
2009, and I was in 8th grade. I was at Thomas Stark King Middle School.
And where's that?
That is, it's right by Griffith Park, from what I
Okay.
remember. Close to John Marshall High School, if you're familiar to
Mm-hmm.
that. But I remember back then in 2009, this dance style called the jerkin was like the dance style for everyone, like the most viral one. But I was very much of a contrarian, I think, until now. And I was like, people are doing the jerk, but I don't like doing that because everyone's doing that. So I started looking up, like, what is another dance style that's like not really as popular, but also kind of well known. And I found out about shuffling. So in 8th grade, I was the shuffler kid in my middle school.
But what made you even want to like take it that like? So okay, you have some really raw experience in grade school,
Yeah.
and then 2-3 years later, you're into it enough where you're like you've got opinions, and
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah. And,
where did that develop from? You know,
and yeah, it mainly it's just because I'm just a huge contrarian.
but
in
you
a
could have been
sense-
contrarian about software engineering or about
Oh, yeah.
basketball, but you were
In
about
dance,
dance. So
yeah.
why
Well,
why this focus on dance?
Why specifically
Yeah.
dance? Because I just saw everyone doing it back in my middle school, even my cousins. So they would be like, oh yeah, I know how to do the reject, or like I know how to jerk, because of like the New Boys track was like such a popular thing back then. There's this guy, his name is Nyboer. He's a really amazing dancer, and he would be like gathering crowds at that time during PE or during lunchtime, because they would have like jerkin dance battles in like a little stage in there, and he would be like the guy that everyone would watch because he's like the best dancer in our middle school. And so I remember he would just be doing the jerk, and everyone's kind of like following through with him and everything like that, and I was like, oh man, I don't want to be like him. So I want to learn how to dance, but like not his style.
I can totally relate to this. Did you have school dances in the Philippines?
We have what we call like, what do you call it? It's not grad night, but not necessarily the same as like what we have here, like as like homecoming or anything like that. It's literally just like the end of the school year type
so
of dance.
when you went to your first school dance here in the States, what did you think? Because I know my experience, growing up in Orange County, was like people eventually started dancing, but in general, the kind of suburban American kid is a little bit not into dancing in general,
Yeah,
right? There's a
yeah.
lot of variation, but in general, did you experience that, or how did that play out for you?
Oh, it was actually crazy. When I went to my first school dance here in the United States, that's when I was already in like a freshman in high school, and I already had kind of like this little foundations on like what shuffling is. So I started bringing that in. But this is like when it was already on its way to dying down. This was like 2010 and
You're like, I'm bringing it back.
2011. Yeah, and that was because like I think what's that shuffling, like LMFAO did their thing, and that's when people stopped thinking it was cool. But like I became like the only shuffler kid in my high school in Temecula then. But then I remember like every time I would try to pull that off, like it was cool. Like I would get like a little bit of an attention and stuff like that. People were like, "Oh my God, you can dance!" And I'm like, "Cool." So that was it. But then like for the most part, like teenagers and everything, like they're not really trying to see more of that too much. They're just trying to like, I don't know, grind on each other or anything. So I was like, that was my very first concept too of like, wow, America is like very, 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 for the lack of a better word, like intimate in their school
Oversexed.
dances. Yeah. So they're not very conservative on that end.
Oh, that's right. That's kind of funny. Did you grow up in like almost a Catholic environment, or?
Yeah, in the Philippines,
Yeah.
it was very Catholic. Everyone's like,
That's interesting. So you grew up around lots of people who dance, but then you come here and people aren't really dancing as much, but they're grinding.
they're grinding,
Oh
and
wow. Okay, Thank you for talking about this. This is like what I was trying to get at. These cultural differences are really
Yeah.
like important, and I think are probably, that's what you bring here, right?
yeah.
When you were younger, were you battling, or were you in like competitive dance, or anything
Oh,
beyond just your own pursuit?
Yeah, well, when I actually only started going to jams when I got a little bit older in college, to be honest.
Okay. I know you from your Bridge the Gap jam, and actually, I think Slim might have connected
Maybe.
me to you, because Slim and Yaya threw
Yeah.
the first one that I'm not through. You threw it, but they
Yeah.
were
They were judges
I
in there.
think.
Yeah.
And I think they might have connected us. How did you connect with them? How did you even know them?
Yeah, so my co-producers for Bridge the Gap, my friends from Chicago, or this organization called Chamber Creative, they're the ones who
Yes.
brought them in.
I met some of them.
Yeah, MJ and Elaine, and
Yes.
much love for them. They're already like way tapped into the dance community more than I am actually, and so when I gave them the pitch of basically saying I wanted to throw a jam where we can have these actual hard conversations between the choreography scene and the freestyle scene, and have them actually share a stage instead of having them separate in like a regular event where there's like a stage for the choreography dancers, and then like on the side would just be like the battlers.
Right, like a World of Dance event,
Yeah.
for example. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I'm totally into. I really love that. Oh, we really love that idea. Let's have them like share this stage and have like both parts of the community actually watch what each other do." And so when they brought that pitch in, they were like, "Oh yeah, let's go ahead and get these judges." They brought in Marcus P. Benito, Slim, and then Yaya.
Yeah.
And then I brought in some of my friends' judges. Originally was Childish and B-Boy Looney. And then later on, Oxy and Jay Wolf in the next one.
I didn't really know. I remember when I went to that, I really didn't understand the concept. I just knew it was called Bridge the Gap.
Yeah.
I knew I'm going to photograph a dance event. Great. That's kind of all I need to know, right?
Yeah.
And then when you kind of introduced the event and talked about your goals for it, I thought, okay, great. What I'm wondering is, when did you perceive the tension or the disconnect that you're, the gap that you're trying to bridge?
That huge gap. Yeah. So this started off when I met my my best friend, or his name's Ty. He goes by Hex as his crumper name. And we first met. We've always had this huge tension with each other, because he came from a freestyle background, and I came from like a very heavy choreography background, and we always just butt heads. And we've had like multiple different conversations regarding what dance is.
Can you just can you give me one example of like something you might have argued about?
Yeah, I remember this is when I was like really young, so please don't kill me if don't. Yeah, I was very mature.
You're not talking to me, are you?
Yeah.
Talking to the audience?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm here to get the story.
No, you're good. But I remember when I was training dance, I was told that like people who only dance freestyle, like we used to watch like me and Ty, we used to watch dancers from Dragon House and everything like that. And when I was being trained, my instructors would always be like, "Oh man, yeah, like you can't really dance like a real man if you just dance with all those ISOs and everything. You have to be very structured, because like that's what looks good on camera. To dance like in a certain masculine way that can only be found in choreography." So that was what was ingrained in me throughout my training in
Okay, go on. That's weird to me. That's
it
a
was
weird perspective.
very weird, yeah, because
Is that a common, like, was it just your instructor who's saying this, or do you feel like that's a commonly
I
dispersed
would,
viewpoint.
yeah, I would hope that it was just like exclusive to my instructor
Mm-hmm.
at that time. But I do see a lot of studio like dancers who came from a studio background. Like they do tend to kind of like stay away from more street dance
Sure.
styles and have a very much more structured way of doing dance because of the choreography background. And their justification for that is mainly because like if you don't dance very clean or anything like that, you wouldn't look good in the industry because people are only going to see talented dancers who are capable of like following a choreographer to a T.
Okay.
And if you have like, let's say, your own personality, or like if you move a certain way that's not necessarily as structured or like or just that clean, you're not really gonna make it too much in the industry on that end. So it's really more about like just this capitalistic way of thinking in dance, not necessarily through the culture.
Right. Oh, that's a trip. Most dancers are not trying to become professionals,
Yeah.
right? Which it's easy to forget if you're in certain environments, but like really, most people aren't. Plus, what you see or what I see in media, a lot of it does seem to be trying to look raw,
Yeah.
right?
Which is great now. I really love this shift. I do remember seeing this like whole entire shift of people wanting to be more raw now. Like I would say like more in 2017 until now, especially with the whole entire conversation of like what is hip hop or what is street dance back in
Yeah.
like COVID times. People are starting to become like a little bit more founded and want to get into these events that are more freestyle and street style based.
Where did you and your friend end up then in this conversation?
So
Are you still having it, or
we'll still do, but now we have this just really good understanding from each other's worlds. So he's the one who brought me into like looking into what actual street dance culture is like, and then I pretty much brought him to like some classes, and now his like pickup is like really, really, really good, and he's going to be the new director of the Syde Project, so which is amazing. And for him, he's been labbing me up in Crump. He's been kind of like my mentor as well, and beyond just dance, it's just kind of like this brotherhood that we've had because of these conversations and experiences that we've had together.
is Crump your? Well, you said shuffling, and then you were in a choreo. Is Crump now your main foundation that you're working on?
I would say, yeah. Our former big homie, Childish, he pretty much just ingrained Crump into my vocabulary. So if I were to pretty much like freestyle, I would say like my comfort style would be Crump. So yeah.
What was the first jam that you went to that you were talking about? How your friend was introducing you to
Yeah.
more street styles versus classroom or studio.
Yeah.
What do you remember the first jam you went to where you were like, oh, this is where your head exploded? Do you remember?
Oh yeah.
What was it?
It was this event in Temecula area. It's called B-Boy Feud, and that was the very very first like jam I've pretty much entered. I remember Hex just pretty much like threw me in. Hex is Thai. He just threw me in. He was like, "You're gonna sign in." I'm like, "I've never battled before," but I was like, "Okay, it shouldn't be that hard." And I even remember the first person I ever battled. Her name is Homare. I don't even think she remembers me until now, but she's like a house teacher now in like these big studios, and really happy for her. And she was the first time I ever battled her. I just remember like the crowd hype is really infatuating. So ever since then, I was like, oh, this is such a cool environment, and yeah.
Yeah. Do you still battle?
Right now, I am not as active in the battling scene anymore compared to back when I was younger, like in my early to mid 20s, and mainly because I just work a lot now.
Yeah. It takes a commitment. Well, plus you're doing. So you mentioned the Syde Project. This is a good time to get into this. What is the Syde Project?
So the Side Project is a team that I founded back in, I believe, in 2018. It started off as just kind of like actual a lie that I told my old director. I was in this team called Infused Dance Crew in
Yeah.
based in Riverside, and I remember he hit me up, and he was like, "Hey man, do you have like a dance team that would love to that would be willing to perform at this cowboy bar? It's called In Cahoots in Fullerton."
Wait, I think it closed. Is that still open?
I have no clue.
Because I grew up in Fullerton. I remember
Yeah.
In Cahoots. I don't think I ever went there, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, they were looking for like dance teams that would like be down to perform. And at that time, I was in this dance team called Infused Dance Crew, and then I was trying to do this other dance team called Monsters Elite based in Oceanside, but that never went through. So um, I know for a fact that that Monsters Elite crew is done and never gonna come back. But my director, his name's Jordan. He was like, "Hey, do you have like a dance team that would be down to perform here?" And I was like, "Yeah." So it was like, "They're gonna pay you $100. Oh my God, yeah, we're down." So literally that same night when I got that phone call, I started dialing a bunch of people, and it was like, "Hey, I got this like super cool performance gig opportunity that we should like totally perform at. It's gonna be at a bar, so it's like something that grown-ups would do." And at that time I was like 20, 21. So like we get to go in and like just hang out. And so I brought in like a few of my friends from college, and I believe there's like only 5 of us. And then they were like, "Cool, yeah, let's perform." And I would remember I was just like walking in campus, and then my Jordan hit me up again. He was like, "So, did you guys confirm? Like, they're still asking for a name for your team." I was like, "Oh shit, I totally forgot about having a name." And so I remember I was just walking to the dance room in my campus, and I was like at a sidewalk. And then I was thinking of a name. I'm like, I'm in a sidewalk right now. So I feel like the name Side would be good. Just spell it wrong so it's cooler. And then this is a project team. So I put Side Project. And that's how the name came
oh my
out.
God. So first of all, this is a great story. Second of all, I didn't know you were a dance team. I actually thought you were more like a production team because I've been to your two Bridge the Gap jams down. They were both basically produced by the Side Project.
Yeah.
So you're a dance crew too.
Yeah, I'm a director of the Side Project currently for almost 10 years. Well, since 2017, 2018.
What do you do besides produce events as a crew?
So, aside from producing events, we also compete. We just the Side Project just got first place at this dance competition called Grandstand last December.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then yeah, we compete in those like regular choreography competitions like Max Style, Grandstand, Prelude, and everything like that. So we've had we've been trying to put our names out there in the choreography community, while on top of that also like having members represent the Side Project name to in like different jams and stuff like that.
What do you think? What do you think the difference is between? So you mentioned when you went to your first jam, you found the crowd energy really. Well, you should put it infatuating.
Yeah.
But if you go to a competitive dance event, you know, where everybody's on stage, the crowd's usually really jacked up too.
Yeah.
So how would you characterize the difference in terms of, I don't know, how you see it or how it feels as a dancer? Maybe that's a better way to ask it.
Yeah, I think it's really more about the intimacy of it. The like pretty much like the portion of how far you are from the audience. That's one. Because for me, like movement is movement. Like dance is just dance, no matter if it's choreography or freestyle.
Yeah.
But also a huge difference is like the process of how you prepare and
That's
how you
the
go
big
about
difference.
it.
Yeah.
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 The way I see making a choreography set is kind of like let's just say for example you're like Michelangelo.
Okay.
You're creating like this either like a painting or like a sculpture, and that's something that's gonna be there forever, right? That's something that's going to immortalize you, and it's going to be on YouTube, so you get to watch that over and over again and remember that choreography in your body. Whereas in freestyling, the way I see it, like since it's kind of like on the spot and
It's
the
like
main
jazz
thing,
to me.
yeah, it's
Not
like
to,
jazz.
but
It's very
it's like John Coltrane, right, or
yeah.
something.
It's very much more like a conversation, like an exchange, and it's really just more and like intimate.
Yeah, I really like that intimacy. It's nice to hear you say that. I also think, and again, I'm not trying to get involved in any arguments because I enjoy the dance teams too. Like,
Yeah.
the first time I went to a top level dance event, I was kind of floored. A competitive dance event, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a different kind of awesome, right? There's the watching, Slim Boogie kind of awesome, and then there's the dance crew kind of awesome, and
Yeah.
it is very different. It does seem like I do think that, kind of related to what we're talking about with the crowded, I feel like the dance battle crowd, the street level crowd is more focused on the actual dance versus the competitive dance crowd, which is more about cheering for your favorite team or your favorite fan, right?
Yes.
Although, both have great validity, which is probably what you used to argue with your friend about and all this
Oh
stuff.
yeah,
But,
no, we've had
I
that.
love that intimacy, and that's what I always tell people who are not, because I'm a middle-aged dude. I didn't grow up around this, right? So a lot of people that I know or that I've known for a long time don't really know anything about this culture and don't go to these events. And I'm always telling you, like, the intimacy is, it's really awesome, like just to see people getting that close and really like everybody's watching. you
Yeah.
know? And it's a certain
Yeah.
intensity.
Oh yeah, I agree. I do think like in terms of like the battling crowd, they will appreciate your dancing a whole lot more, like your skill level and everything.
Yeah.
Whereas in terms of the choreography scene, I think like they would appreciate more so like the process on how you made that entire set.
Well, and like if you go not knowing what's going on, if there's a big dramatic moment, it's obvious. So everybody
Yeah.
cheers for that. And then it's obvious that people are cheering for their friends or whatever. When I first started going to battles, there were some things where I was like, oh, wow. But a lot of times people were like, oh, and just
Yeah.
like, oh, oh. And I'm like, what? And now I've learned to read a lot of this stuff better. There's still things I miss, right?
Yeah.
But now I have a way better sense of that. But at first you're like, what what's going
Like,
on?
why is it
what's
so
everybody
loud?
getting jacked up about,
Yeah.
right? Like, why are you so excited? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
I appreciate your
definitely
point
agree.
about
Of
the
course.
difference.
Yeah, I remember when I was when I first started getting to battles too. Like I half of the point like I don't get. And it took me a while, especially in crump battles. Crump battles is like a way even more different when it comes to energy. Like I sometimes you would see like just this you appreciate someone's presence. Like they don't even like they just throw like an arm swing and don't do anything else for like 10 seconds. And
See
that's
that
like
a lot, actually. Yeah.
yeah, and there's like the buckest thing ever. It's just like that presence that person has, and it's crazy. Sometimes they just walk in there and stand and just look at that person like they're battling, and they're like, "Bro," and everyone just goes crazy. I was like, "This is wild." So, yeah, it's definitely something to appreciate about, and just that's what makes me love dance in general. Like you can be an audience member, you can be a participant, but at the same time, like you just have to exchange this energy that's just really intoxicating to have.
Yeah, and it's so rare. Like before we started here, I was kind of talking to you about this. Like this kind of environment, really, if you want to get down to it, is the most fundamental human thing possible.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, probably the first cultural expression of people was
Let's dance. Yeah.
gathering around, dancing and making noise, right? And the kind of capitalistic, everybody's got to move for work.
Yeah.
Everything's really like just all about business has eroded this part of culture. And to me, it's like, where else do you, and that's why I'm so enthusiastic about this culture, is 'cause like, where else do you see this? You just don't, right?
Yeah.
And yet it's available to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like you said, it's dance has always been present in like ceremonies or certain celebrations, and it goes way beyond our species right now. Like uh, when the Homo sapiens had their um, had their first ever sort of celebration when they founded fire, like they were like dancing around that
Right.
and everything. That's just how they expressed happiness,
Yeah.
and it goes all the way here. And it is definitely sad that because we're everything is so fast paced right now like celebration or like just having some sort of like this sort movement to express yourself has become some sort of a commodity or even a loss of it. So
Yeah, it right, but when you go to these like community-based events, it's not a commodity anymore. It's a
mhm,
real
it's
thing.
authentic, yeah.
Yes. When do you still go back to do you go back home frequently?
To
Back to
Mexico,
the Philippines?
to the Philippines,
Yeah.
no, but I'm going back next year.
How long it's been?
It's been 16 years now since
Oh
I've
my
gone back.
gosh.
I know.
Do you have a nice chunk of time to go
Yeah,
back and
I'm
do
gonna
it?
go. I might actually go back for good. Um, I'm planning
Oh.
on getting married, so
Really?
yeah,
Are you getting married there?
I am getting married there.
Well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
I should have bought you nicer flowers.
Oh no, carnations are amazing.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that except congratulations, and I hope you do come back because like
Mhm.
you're definitely a positive presence. But if you do leave, I can't blame you. This is
Yeah,
a strange time in the United States, and
yeah, it is quite a strange time, and so my future spouse, she doesn't really want to come here because of that. But at the same time, like maybe it's time for me to kind of like go back home and see what it's like in there and
yeah.
see what I can share and what in there from what I've learned here.
When you were talking about your dance experience as a kid, I mean, I know that the Philippines is very fond of popular culture,
Mhm.
but is there any kind of did you get exposure to traditional dance? Like, are there traditional dances that tie into this kind of vision that like people abroad have of the Philippines?
Mhm.
Like everybody saw the prisoners dancing, the
Yeah.
Michael Jackson dance, right? Um, like I've seen that Journey documentary.
Mhm.
There are even, I believe there are Filipino singers who are famous just for kind of doing karaoke, right?
Yeah.
But so what I'm asking, is there a traditional element that still exists that kind of feeds into all this that if you live there you're exposed to?
Oh, that's actually a really good question. In terms of just tradition, uh, the the sad part about me being in the Philippines is that I lived in pretty much like just the city too
Mm-hmm.
much. I mean, I am familiar with the traditional dances like tinikling or like the coconut dance and everything like that, but I never really got to learn them in a sense to tie that to what I know now in street dance. It's always been kind of like separate for me.
But it's there. So we can talk. What I'm asking you though, just to,
Hmm.
it sounds like it's present,
Yeah,
right?
it is
Right,
still
like because
there.
all we see here is like, oh, Filipinos love pop culture.
Mhm.
So what I'm asking is there still Mexico's a good example, right?
Mhm.
Mexicans have tremendous pop culture that's now kind of bigger than ever, right?
Mhm.
It might, who knows, the next K-pop might be Mexican,
Yeah.
right? But I also know because I'm close to there, I know that the traditional dance, folklorico and
Mhm.
tons of other things are still very present
Mhm.
in the culture if you're Mexican,
Oh yeah.
right? So that's what I'm wondering.
Oh,
If
okay.
you're living in the Philippines, are those deeper traditions still a presence?
Oh
Whether or
yes.
not you practiced them,
Oh
that's a
yes.
different question.
Hmm. Oh yeah, they're still very much present. There's there's a lot of like cultural clubs that still do practice that as well,
Okay.
and there's actually this P-pop group in the Philippines. They're called Alamat, which translates to legend in English, and
They're a
they
what
are
group? What was the adjective?
they're a P-pop group. So like how there's K-pop,
Yeah.
and then there's P-pop.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's this group called Alamat. They're very well known for having traditional style dances incorporated into their like pop choreography.
Okay, I'm definitely
So,
gonna look this up, and I'll link out to this too, or
mhm.
some some example of this.
Yeah, so there
Okay.
it's still very much present. The culture is very much like alive in there. So yeah.
All right, that's good to know because I really had no idea about
Yeah.
this. I'm taking a quiz.
No, you're good.
That's
You're
why I
good.
do this. I like to know people.
Yeah.
Are you gonna? Well, gosh, when's your wedding?
That we don't know yet. We haven't
Okay.
figured out yet.
Okay, so will there be another Bridge the Gap jam?
Ooh, this January there will be this upcoming one, but that would be personally my last one, moving forward.
Yeah.
Unless if I bring it to the Philippines, but I think my plan is, I think the advocacies of the Bridge the Gap, here and with the side project is something that should be ongoing in the dance community here in the United States. In the Philippines, I don't even think they need that sort of event. They're very much grounded into the foundations. Each, from what I've seen, each dance team goes to battles at the same time goes to choreography competitions. They just go hand in hand. The the polarization from what I've been hearing about is just a Southern California thing, at least from what I know. And I think these sort of events is something that's needed here more so than in the Philippines. So the future director of the side project is the one who's going to be handling the next Bridge the Gaps after the one in 2027.
All right. Sounds good. Do you like? How do you see dance fitting into your life, like going forward?
Ooh, that actually I haven't really figured out yet. I do want to go back to the Philippines and see if there's something I could share. Let's maybe like if I could teach. I know I have family members who's already asking me if I could coach their dance teams or like
Oh, nice.
teach at their studio. But then at the same time, I feel like I'm gonna be starting from scratch in there. I do have like, I'm privileged enough to have like financial foundations that's coming here from the United States, and the exchange rate is advantageous for me. But at the same time, my focus in there for a few years would be kind of like establishing what it would be like to be with my partner then.
Yeah.
But hopefully I could teach in there, or I could pretty much coach some dance teams, if not still take classes. But my main goal is to not necessarily be just a participant in the dance community. Like even here, I don't really just want to end up being just a participant in the dance community. I want to be one of the people who get to make a mark.
Well, that's very obvious. So I'm so glad you said this because I wanted to ask you about this because again, like as I mentioned earlier, I've never actually seen you dance.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of why I had a lot of questions about your dancing and stuff. But I've seen you, run an event and you've got great energy. And I like the story you told earlier about how when you were asked if you had a dance team, you just said you did.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's a certain kind of personality that I definitely admire. Like I wish I had more of that in me, honestly.
Just the audacity.
Yeah. So do you have a bunch of brothers and sisters, or do you have?
I do.
You do?
Yeah, I have
How
one brother, two brothers, and then one sister.
Okay, so two brothers, one sister. Hello to them.
Yeah.
I was just kind of wondering, have you always been like this? Are your parents like this? Do you kind of sense where you get this kind of like I'm just gonna do it kind of mentality?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I got it from my mom for sure.
Is your mom a badass?
My mom is such a badass. She's the one who kind of brought us all over here. I remember like when we first moved here in the U.S., we were living in my auntie's garage, and from then on, like we were struggling. We like I came from a childhood where I had maids and I had a driver. And then moving
Wow,
here.
and then you're in a garage.
Yeah, and I was in a garage and I was like, dude, this is like a very humbling thing. But the thing is even when we were in the Philippines, I never really felt the struggle, even though we were struggling back then. But that was basically because of my mom. She did what she could to make us feel comfortable. And then when I finally felt discomfort moving here, that's when I realized what my privilege was when I was a kid and like my sense of entitlement. So we were really, really struggling back then. We were like evicted to like multiple places that we were living in until my mom finally got the break. And now she owns like multiple houses and then like 7 cars or something. And I'm like, until now, I don't know how she did it, but that's something I really aspire to in terms of like getting just that
And
audacity.
she's still here, right?
She's still here.
What if you had this nice kind of like middle class lifestyle there? What made her want to bolt?
Um, One, because my grandma died, and she lived here, and so when she went and visited here in the U.S., she basically said like, I think our life here in the U.S. would be way better compared to just being in the Philippines. So even though I personally lived a middle class lifestyle, my mom knew that it wasn't really gonna last that much longer
Okay.
because of like the actual financial struggle that was happening in there. So she had to make a decision to have us all moved here and everything.
Oh, wow. So does she think you're crazy for maybe wanting to go back, or what does she think about that?
She One thing I know is she really wouldn't put it past me. That's like she knew that I was crazy enough to move to Irvine, which is like one of the most expensive cities, like within a day notice, without even having like some sort of like actual financial foundation back then. Like I was working at JC Penney, and then I just decided, okay, I'm gonna move to Irvine now. Bye, mom. And she was like, wait, what? And yeah, that's pretty much just what happened. And then I was like, I'm gonna just go there and figure it out. One thing my mom knows about me is that I know how to talk to people. So that's just what I did when I moved to Irvine. I just talked, and then I got a corporate job, and that's just what's keeping me going.
Yeah,
from
I
then on.
I know that story. I did
Yeah.
that myself. You know how to talk to when did you realize you knew how to talk to people?
Ooh, that's something I had to train myself to do.
So you weren't good at it.
I wasn't. I was an extreme introvert back then.
How did you train yourself?
So
Just to give you some the reason I'm
Yeah.
asking is because I'm good at talking to people, and I didn't realize, but I was the kid. So like in grade school, and I'm talking like from like first grade.
yeah,
I was a decent student, and I wasn't like a nightmare in class, but I talked a lot, and so I'd get moved. They'd be,
Yeah.
oh, you're talking too much to Joey. We got to move him on the other movie. Whoever they put me next to, I would just end up talking too much. Right?
yeah.
So for me, this is like something very deeply ingrained, and my dad is like this too. And I've always thought, well, but I didn't know it, right? But until I got to a certain age, and I realized, oh, this is something I'm good at, and I should have respect for it and hone it,
Yeah.
right? And not just take it for granted. And then I also realized that was kind of special about my dad, is that wherever we would go, he would end up talking to a stranger.
yeah,
And that's also something that I was like, oh yeah, I'm kind of like this too. Even as a little kid, like I would chat up adults, right? So I'm just kind of naturally a chatty motherfucker, and that's kind of why I started doing this, because
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I've kind of become part of this dance community, and what can I do to just kind of do more with it and spread the word and get some more stories. And I was like, well, I'm good at talking to people. I've got some microphones. I've got a camera.
yeah.
Obvious. I cannot imagine. I'm sorry to ramble, but I cannot imagine having to train myself to do this. So, like, I can imagine training myself to play guitar or like, do hair or even code or whatever.
Yeah.
But I can't. What?
Yeah, it was a process. So I don't know if this YouTube video still exists, because my main thing is I moved here in the U.S. and I had like I still have an accent now, but like I had like a really thick accent to the point people could barely understand me. And plus like there's a culture shock and everything like that. So I was like, I don't have any friends, but I wanted to have friends. And one thing that my parents told me was that in Tagalog, they would say like dapat makapal ang mukha mo para um, for you to survive here, which basically means like you have to have like a thick face or a thick skin for you to survive.
But the word is actually thick face.
Yeah, thick face,
I
makapal ang
like
mukha.
that.
Yeah, so um, to do that, basically say they say like here in America you can't be an introvert because if you just stay being an introvert, you're not gonna get to anywhere. You have to start talking to people, and so the way I train myself is, I remember I would have gum, and I would just like start passing them. I'm like, hey, do you want gum? And then people would be like, oh yeah, sure, I want some gum. I'm like, yeah. Oh, what's your name? And that's just how I started talking to people.
Oh my
And it was
God.
like scary, but I had like something to kind of like offer to basically say, I'm inviting you to my space.
But wait, what does it have to do with a YouTube video?
Oh yeah, so I learned that from a YouTube video. Just basically say like have some sort of an excuse to talk to people.
Oh my God.
And
That's so great. You're
yeah.
like just like doing your own sales training.
Yeah.
Is it? Were you an introvert before you moved here?
I was so much of an introvert.
Wow. So then you had that kind of, you were an introvert, and then with the cultural language barrier. Nice work.
Thank you.
That's a great story because again, like it's hard for me to imagine, because I've kind of just always been
Yeah, just,
like this,
no,
right?
it's great
And-
though. That's something I'm still trying to get at because there will be some times where I am still kind of like scared to talk to people.
I mean, everybody, but that's
Yeah.
universal. I am too. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that fear is foreign to me, but you've done it, dude. Like, I mean, for the first time I met you, it was very obvious, and now you accomplished your goal.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's really just passing gum or giving compliments, and that's the first thing I ever learned, and so far it worked out. And then now I just kind of like talk, and I also started journalism in college, so that boosted even way more like my ability to talk to people.
What was your beat?
Oh, my beat was I went to arts and culture, or it started from A&E, from arts and entertainment, and then arts and culture, and then I went into becoming an opinion editor. And my opinion editor side is the one that I like the most because I get to talk to people that are just like very, very different from who I actually talk to.
Yeah, that's
So-
a good excuse to do that.
Yeah, like I talked to like cult members, like supremacists and stuff like that. It was great. Well, not great, but it's a good
No,
experience.
that's right. I was the music writer for our
Oh,
high school
okay.
paper, so I did like
Oh.
album reviews.
So
and
you
stuff
had
like
journalism background too.
that. Yeah. I was an English lit major in college. So yeah, writing, reading,
Yeah.
it's always
It was great.
talking. Always been.
Yeah, and the best part is, I tell this to everyone, like people who are like getting into college, like take a journalism class, because that badge, the press badge that they have, is so powerful. Like you could go to like so many different places for free if you show
That's
that
true.
press badge.
That's true. Although now, God, so what do you think what's going on right now with journalism? The way people are.
Ooh,
Personally, just to
yeah,
put it out there, like it really is. I find it very discouraging that
yeah,
there's a not everybody, but there's kind of a general vibe that journalists are not to be trusted, and this
Yeah.
just seems to be a complete
like 180.
180 of what's the truth.
Yeah.
Right? To me, not that all journalists are great people or geniuses or anything like that, but just like basically they're doing the work that these people, because I see so much shit. I'm sure you do too. Like some serious issue, like whether it's about healthcare, whether about
Yeah.
politics, it'll be somebody sitting in their basement and they may be perfectly smart, but like, and they're giving you like a 2-minute account of, the history of Israel or something. It's like, and this is what people are getting their information from. It's like,
It's
so
yeah.
I'm glad that you're not one of these people. 'Cause
Yeah.
It sucks.
It really does suck.
It really sucks.
Rise of social media, citizen journalism. There's a lot of caveats. I mean,
But there's a lot of good aspects to citizen journalism. Like,
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. But sitting in your basement and talking about something you probably don't know that much about
yeah, it's
is not really.
it's not as credible, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to find like things that you could trust, especially like if you get your information from like just Facebook or TikTok or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's hard. But then I understand like the distrust of people too with like trained journalism, because like we have the biggest like mainstream journalism medias that are kind of like being blamed for media bias. So people don't really know who to trust.
But people don't know what bias is.
Exactly. And that's the thing
Right?
too.
Their bias now means, oh, I don't agree with you. You're biased. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, that's not.
Yeah, and they get into like their they just kind of believe what's comfortable. In a
And
sense.
then pretend like everything else is wrong.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, it's
It's hyperpolarization.
yeah.
You know, if it's not what I believe, that means like that opinion is wrong. And
Yeah,
it
I wish I knew how to
sucks.
bridge that gap.
Oh, yeah. Um, that's what got me into journalism, because that's something I wanted to um, do too. But then I realized like the more I was into it, the more nihilistic I become. Because no matter what I write, I was in the field. I was looking at what I'm seeing and reporting on what I'm seeing. At the end of the day, people are still not gonna believe what I'm saying, and that's the hardest pill to swallow.
Well, I guess some people will, right? Like,
Hopefully,
you have to.
yeah.
Kinda, I guess if you were going to pursue that, you would have to believe it. Some people are going to believe it.
Yeah, and hopefully, like that was my biggest like when we were in college, we had like this save the world mentality at one point, but then just it died down on me,
Right.
at least in that aspect. So it was really sad, but one thing I got is pretty much still the audacity to talk to people in journalism. So
Right.
that's still, and like learning people's stories. It's still great, no matter how even if I don't agree with that person 100%. Like knowing and seeing what their justifications on what they believe are, and just sitting back and not really trying to fire back, and just seeing like, okay, I see why you believe that. It's something that's like,
Yeah.
I feel like it's something that's really powerful nowadays. You just sit down and
Yeah.
listen.
I mean, that's how the best journalists do that.
Yeah.
Right? I have one more dance question. Since you have some experience, do you feel there's a noticeable difference between the dance scene in Orange County and in Los Angeles, or between
Ooh.
like more southern? Because you could extend Orange County to San Diego versus
Mhm.
LA, or do you see it's all?
Yeah. That's. I remember I was having this kind of talk with my friends, and like how the dance communities are. We can hit it in the choreography aspect and the freestyle aspect.
Okay.
So, starting off with the choreography aspect, I do think the progenitors of the choreography scene here, at least in Southern California, came from San Diego, with roots from Culture Shock, and more so, a lot of the style in San Diego right now is really heavily based on like this R&B, very slow. The biggest team in San Diego right now in terms of the choreo scene is like Choreo Cookies, where Keone and Mari just kind of like established that choreography style that's very San Diego based, and people would even call it the San Diego style.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is cool. And then in the IE, depends on which part of the IE that you're gonna look into. So like let's say for example Temecula, right? Temecula is heavily based in San Diego style, because a lot of the dancers there go to San Diego to take class.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for the most part, even back then, like you would see people from Temecula who would only take class in San Diego, and if it's not a San Diego style class, they're just gonna sit out, because they're like, I don't like this. So, but then
And the
if
San
you
Diego
go-
style is more R&B based. Is that what you're
like
saying?
more R&B, more slow. The way I could describe it is like hipster style, like the millennial hipster style. If you look at choreographers like Keone and Mari or Christopher Martin, Those are like the teams that I remember being like the biggest sort of influences in San Diego
Okay.
community. Here in Orange County, from what I am seeing now is that a lot of it is pretty much being ran by students. Kaba Modern is like the biggest team in Orange County, as far as I know. I think that's not the team from UCI, and they're also trying to be more grounded. But one thing that I was told by some of my friends that's in Orange County is they're more known for being grimy. And I don't know how exactly to interpret that word, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it doesn't mean grime like UK grime.
Yeah, no, not
But it probably just means like I would guess as someone who grew up because Orange County, you've probably learned by now, used to be really conservative.
yeah.
Right? And now that's not nearly as true as it used to be, and it's also way more diverse than it
Yeah.
used to be. But there's still this thing where LA looks down on Orange County. So I'm guessing this comes out of a desire to be like, no,
Yeah.
we can get dirty too, right?
Yeah.
I'm guessing it comes out of that.
Yeah, kind of like
I
a
could be
reaction
wrong,
from
but
it.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's a good point. That's actually maybe worth looking into as well. The Orange County scene, definitely the people the main leaders in there right now are people from like B-Boy Anonymous or people who teach at liminal space and everything like that. But a lot of them are very student ran.
Right.
So,
And then what
it
were
is
you going to
great.
say about the freestyle? You said you
Yeah,
had an opinion about freestyle too.
in San Diego, the freestyle scene, I know that they're really heavy on pretty much like just the community. San Diego, that's Wild Seven's turf, the way I see it. They're the ones who pretty much run everything. They're very, very, very into foundations, super heavy on the foundations. I see a lot of funk style dancers in there.
Yeah, I know Foundation, and I've been to his event, which is great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really, really great. And yeah, I see mainly poppers, breakers, and crumpers that are kind of like pretty much taking over San Diego.
Okay.
And then in the IE, really heavy on crump. Super, super heavy on crump. Ruin, Childish are the ones that are kind of like holding that name right now. We have like the mobile sessions in there, the corner sessions in there, which is like the biggest, some of the biggest crump events, playgrounds. Those are like that is pretty much what IE is known for right now. Although back then they're well known for their breakers. We had Until We Die, who was like the best breaking crew in the IE back in the day. That's as far as I know. And then in OC, a lot of them are people from the next generation that are learning from different sets of leaders from different cities right now.
I wonder why that is, because I've been to a few events in OC, but not as many, and the ones I've been to they do trend really young.
Yeah.
Right, and it feels like exactly what you're saying, but I never, I was like, well, maybe this is just my experience.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's maybe not just my experience. It's kind of an interesting thing. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it's just because the younger generation is the one who are open to it, and there isn't a whole lot of older generation people there who did it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's simply
Maybe
that.
so. And if you also kind of look at it, I mean, like the surrounding area is really just filled with a lot of like colleges. We have the UCI.
Yeah, that's true.
As the biggest, and then like I don't even know if it's part of OC, but like Pomona is
It's not
technically LAIE, right?
Pomona's technically not
Yeah.
in OC, but I know what you're saying. And you got Saddleback, and you got Cal State Fullerton,
Chapman
and you
University.
got all the community colleges as well.
Yeah, and a lot of them they're just conglomerate into the dance community.
Yeah.
So there isn't really like some sort of like a solid leader.
Yeah, you don't have that urban
there.
center, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they all look up to LA.
Yeah.
Right? So LA is pretty much where the hub is, where the industry is and everything like that. Choreography, style wise, very big. Pretty much like what you would see on TV, and it's really good on TV. Really good in music videos and stuff like that. Vastly, vastly different from the dance style that you would see in San Diego, which is like a little bit more chill. In here is like, ka 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 ka. We're not playing. learn the choreography in 30 minutes, and then we're going to be taking videos for the next hour.
Right,
And that's pretty
right.
much it. And yeah, that's just how the LA scene goes. But
And
in
then
terms,
what I notice is that on the freestyle level or
Mhm.
the street styles level, the competition is more intense.
very, very
Right.
intense.
Like
Yeah.
just the level of competition.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, when people from other states come into
Oh, yeah.
California, they're not gonna think of like, oh, I want to go to like Temecula, California to battle. No, they're gonna be like LA.
Have you been? Oh no, you haven't actually. You answered that early, but there must be big dance events in Manila or in other Philippines.
Oh yeah.
Because like you said, the dance. There was at the last World Dance. There was a female dancer, Sophia Shows, I think her name was.
Yeah, she's a locker.
Yes,
Sophia Cruz.
I just remember in the circle she just came out and just took over. And I
Oh,
was just
yeah.
like, and then there was a Afro dancer from Korea. He's actually an African dude. His name's Ifon, I think. I had never met him, but they just both just kept going at it, and it was like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, no, people who are coming from Asia, they come here to the US and their main goal is to just prove themselves. Like, at least from what I've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, like, American dancers, this is our backyard, right? So like,
Right.
cool, we dance and it's cool. But like, if you're somewhere from like Japan, Korea, Philippines, they're gonna come here and be like, I'm gonna set my ground, and because this is my opportunity right now to be seen in America. And
Yeah.
it's great. So we've had a lot of like great dancers. I remember there was like a running joke back when I was in college. We always say like, oh bro, if you're like going against a Japanese dancer in a jam, like might as well take the L. That's how good they are. So
Yeah, I see a lot of that in Korean dancers too, for
Mhm.
sure. Do you got any? You know, I end up driving these things,
Mhm.
but this should be a conversation. Do you have anything you wanted to ask me, or?
yeah, we were talking about this earlier. How you got into dance, how you were introduced to dance. But for now, do you have you ever considered like joining a jam or anything like that? Or
No, like I've jumped in the circle occasionally,
Uh-huh.
right, just to do it. You know, the funny thing is I'm generally a person who participates, right?
Mhm.
But all these, you know, I entered this thing at such a, well, it's Slim's classes, right? And
Yeah.
so I kind of came into this place where everybody was, you know, even if they didn't think they were, everybody was pretty good.
Mhm.
And everybody's there to sort of like prove themselves and stuff like that. So, for example, where was I recently? I was at, you know, T. Custon has been throwing that middle ground session. I don't know if you know about this. He's been throwing a Monday night session in North Hollywood.
Okay.
At like a house and like a garage.
Oh.
It's awesome. It's a dance studio, but these guys have turned their garage into
Yeah.
a dance studio. And I was thinking, you know, I've been coming to this thing. I should jump in the circle, right?
Mhm.
But like, I don't have anything to prove.
Yeah.
I will admit it's a little bit intimidating, but I also know that for the dancers themselves, it can be intimidating, even if you've done it a million times. But just like everybody there wants to do, like, there's so many people that are like earnest and like much younger than me who want to get in there. And like, I'm not going to get in there and take up space, right? So I will jump in from time to time at something where I kind of feel comfortable and where I also feel like I'm not taking somebody else's space.
Oh, that's
Right.
interesting.
Because you know, I have a lot of respect for this. You know, there's certainly a fear. Like, it's intimidating, right? All you got is you.
Yeah.
I think dancing and singing are the most vulnerable art forms.
Yes.
Right. You can't hide behind a guitar or a drum set or a paintbrush or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
It's you. So, but that's it. I don't. You know, I'm kind of at the stage in my life where I know what I want to work on, and dance is not it.
Yeah.
Even though I admire it, I've learned a lot about it. I will actually in here sometimes, you know, if I'm sitting and working on the computer or at home too, I will just put on some music and start dancing just to
Just
work
let
it
loose.
out.
Yeah.
Right, which is something I never did before until I got exposure to this community. The few times that I have jumped in the circle, I definitely get a lot of positive feedback, you know,
Okay.
because it's just, you know, people don't expect it.
Yeah.
And I'm
kind of awkward, but I have good rhythm at the same time because I'm a drummer. So like they're at least I'm not completely lost.
Yeah.
But those are my thoughts on that. So no, I have no interest in battling or in practicing this art or even the craft. But that's kind of why.
I see.
But you might see me dance someday. Right?
Okay. Yeah. Hopefully you might see me dance.
Yeah.
I feel like
I have been practicing the
most
tick
part.
walk because I had Boogie Frantic here.
Okay.
And he showed me his tick walk that made him
Oh.
famous.
Oh, okay.
And I've been and this, the other thing is, dude, like, and that's part of coming in at this level where I'm seeing like the world's best from the get-go.
Yeah.
Is that for me to like, okay, so I go to a class and I see, okay, people learn this like 16 count choreography in like 15 minutes or whatever. And I'm like, it's going to take me an hour to learn the first 4 beats. Cause it doesn't like I'm coordinated this way and I'm coordinated this way. But the idea of like,
Oh yeah. Like,
memorizing those movements is not in my wheelhouse. And so there's that too. It's just like, it's a
does
bit
get
confounding.
hard. Yeah.
Like, honestly, like how do you, what?
No, I definitely feel that. There's different ways of actually learning certain moves. Like there are teachers.
Yeah.
I think you've probably been to classes for the most part where they would like try to explain the dances or the dance moves to you. Through
Yes.
words.
In fact, I took, when I had, do you know Brandon Beast Boy?
Beast
Is it
Boy.
Versatile?
Yeah,
Versatile?
yeah.
Why did I say Versatile? Am I like from Joyzy now? I don't know.
Oh man,
Jeez.
such a funny guy too.
Great guy. So I had him in here, and then I also, as part of the thing, because I love Versatile. I know most of the people involved, and I said, hey, could I take a dance class from you? Oh, that's what I went to their annual their end of the year event, and they had so they do a performance, and they bring all their supporters, and it's a nice like holiday time thing. But they also had a silent auction, and one of the silent auction items was a dance lesson with a versatile member of your choice.
Oh.
So I was like, hey. So I actually didn't think I'd win, but I put my amount down just to get things rolling. And nobody else bid on it, so I ended up winning it. Right. So like, okay, I'd like to have you on the podcast. And then could I take a dance lesson with you? And just film it and make that part of the podcast. So I took a hip hop lesson from Beast Boy. I know he's more known as a crumper these days, but he has a hip hop foundation. And so yes, I'm saying this because yes, he showed me a bounce and a roll and a lean, and so I have some clue about this stuff. But again, like I'm not really in a place where I'm going to practice it, and I'm not motivated to. Right? I appreciate it, but I do. It's good to know because it helps me as a photographer. It helps me as somebody who watches dance. And then when I do like occasionally move myself, I like have something I can latch on to a little bit, right?
You know what's funny? When I first met Beast Boy, it was through a shuffling event. He was a judge for he was like a judge for a shuffling jam, and I remember he was just like the only non-shuffler in there, but he was just like somehow judging. And then like my big homie at that time, Childish, went with me because he wanted to support me in that jam. And then he was like, yo, what the fuck, that's Beast Boy, he's a crumper. I was like, oh shit. Like why is he judging this event? And I thought it was cool. So I remember when I was doing my shuffling rounds, I started crumping too because I wanted to appeal to Beast Boy, like, hey, pick me.
Did it work?
No. Because it was
He
like,
saw right through you.
Yeah, he was like, you're not even shuffling, so why am I gonna judge you for crumping? I was like, oh yeah, you're right. But I made it past top 16, so I was like, this is fine with me.
Oh, well, it worked then.
Yeah.
Kind of worked.
But I just thought that was really funny. And then the next time I met him was at Beast Camp, and I remember Beast, he was like, all right, all of y'all are going to battle. And the final battlers at that time was Beast Boy and Icon. And I thought that was like one of the best battles that was never filmed that I've ever seen ever. But both of them are buck. So,
yes, very much. I appreciate you asking me that, because that's...
yeah. And
I'm sure a lot of people want to ask me that and don't, right?
Really?
So, well, just because you're always in these dance events, why aren't you dancing?
That's true.
Which I understand, there's that gap, but that's kind of why, and occasionally I do.
Yeah, I'm very curious when you were saying about like, like you kind of like taking up space in that. And do you kind of consider yourself like you're a photographer? Do you just kind of like see yourself as someone that's separate?
Only
Or
in
like
that regard. Like, honestly, I've made, I mean, that's why I know a lot of people, because once I started doing this, I was like, no, I'm not going to, like, people need to know who I am. Like,
Yeah.
otherwise you're this weird guy with a camera, right?
Yeah.
Plus, I like people anyway. But no, I'm the same person. I've made an effort to get to know as many people as possible, and I still
Yeah.
like, hey, what's your name? Like, and share the photos and all that. But the photographer part of me, like, it is part of being a photographer to have that distance.
Yeah.
And I think that just kind of comes naturally to me. And then there's also the fact of being, like, generally older than most people who are dancing at these events. And so that's what I mean about the taking up space. Like, for me, like, if I see a bunch of, younger people who really want to get in there and dance, like, I just feel like that's for them.
Oh,
right? That's
okay.
what I mean by that.
I see.
That's what I mean by, it's not by trying to keep a distance. It's just, but yes. So for the photography itself, that's kind of a natural extension of photography. But as a person, no, I don't want to keep a distance. I want to be
wanna
present.
actually
I want to get to know people, and I want to ask questions like, like the first, I didn't know what Crump was. I had seen Rise,
Ooh,
right?
classic.
Before I knew anything about the rest of the community, but I didn't know anything about Crump. The first person I saw Crump was Dredd.
Ooh.
Right? Because he would come, well, he used to live in LA.
Yeah.
And he would come to all of Slim, the Battle Games events. And that was my first, and so I just, I asked him, how long you been doing this? What are the basic moves? That's kind of my approach. I'm very interested in learning and in people, and I don't want to keep a distance in that way.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I'm involved, you know what
That's
I mean?
good.
Like
Yeah. No, because I thought like, oh, you, I mean, I was like, oh, I could kind of get it. Like they're having like some sort of like a journalistic mindset, like, oh, you can look at things within like just the lens. But I really like the fact that you're involved and you actually get to know these dancers.
Yeah.
And you're doing this.
Yeah, this is an
Great.
extension of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, the distance thing, the journalism thing, that just kind of comes naturally. And then the fact that I did not, because I am not a dancer, did not grow up in this, that gives me a default distance anyway, where I'm going to appreciate things. Like I was saying to you earlier about going to battles and not really understanding why people are cheering for certain things. I'm going to appreciate things that others don't. Right. So whenever I watch a battle, I try to guess who's going to win or who I thought won. And I'd say 80% of the time, I'm in line with the judges.
Yeah.
And then 10% of the time, and then the other 20% is a mix between, I just don't know what I'm looking at, or I'm like, no, I just disagree. Right? Because I appreciate certain things that maybe the judges don't, because they're more focused on maybe technique or foundation, and I'm more focused on like overall dance and communication and vibe and energy and that sort of thing.
Do you think you've finally gotten like some sort of like an eye or like a keen to noticing like, oh, what is good foundation?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, still learning, but yes, of course. Yeah, and some styles more than others, right? Like I have almost no exposure to breaking, which is kind of funny because when you tell people outside the dance community about street dance, they kind of their default style that they know about is breaking.
Yeah, you're a break dancer. Yeah.
And I know very little about that. But I have I've been around a lot of popping and animation and funk styles. And Crump I've been around. I've made an effort to get around the past couple of years, but I really don't know. I just appreciate the energy, and I can tell who's a good dancer. Like what I love about Crump so much is that the best Crumpers are amazing dancers, and the way that's mixed in with the pure energy release is amazing.
Yeah.
To be able to completely let go like that and still dance is, to me, like really profound.
That's true.
Really profound. But I can't, I can tell you can dance, but I can't really truly say I can evaluate, oh, that person's a good runner, that person's not,
Okay.
So,
And if you were to like fully delve into a style, like what would be a dance style that you would like be known for?
honestly, it would probably be animation because my knees can't take hip hop.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Have you been learning from Jay Smooth? Or no, he's more into waving.
I know Jay Smooth, and
Yeah.
I know Gifted pretty well, and
Uh-huh.
I've been to the waves within events, and I appreciate that. But no, I wouldn't. It wouldn't be waving so much. I'm more like
More
Robozilla.
animation. Oh, yeah,
kind of
Robozilla.
like the type of thing that Yaya does. That kind of more suits my personality. I remember the first time I did get into a circle was actually after the pandemic, and Kumse was throwing these little tiny sessions.
Yeah.
Like people had just started to come out the house and she like this in a parking lot, super, super small. And I went in and she's like, who have you been studying with? Like, because I was like, no one, because the one thing I can do, like I can keep like a weird face.
Yeah.
I can be like,
Oh, okay.
and I can do that. Like I have that kind of like being weird and kind of fearless kind of thing that, so I think I would head toward that, the character thing. Right? I would, that's what I mean by like Robozilla and Yaya to some extent, and animation dancers who dive
like-
into the character.
Yeah, just very like
Right. Yeah, and that body control, and it's not gonna like break my
Yeah.
knee,
a little more relaxed.
Right, it's still, it can be very, very physical, right? Like Robozilla's super physical,
Oof.
but like,
He can get bucked too.
yes, he can
It's
do it
like
all. But
crazy.
like what he's known for, I think, and popping too, I think, I didn't realize how physically demanding. In fact, some people have told me that popping is the most physically demanding style, but it's probably not going to like break your joints as, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's probably a little less risky, even though it might be more physically exhausting.
Yeah, I mean the constant of flexing your muscles
Oh my God.
is. I
Yeah.
could definitely see why that is demanding. I'm biased towards Crump, so I was like, I think Crump is very physically demanding, and that
Yeah.
really does hurt my knees every time we do like a stomp. Though, so that's just me though.
Yeah.
Or also that's probably because I'm turning 30. So.
Just wait.
You know, yeah, no. Every time I make that comment, my younger friends are like, "Oh, I'm 21 and you already feel it." I'm like, I say the same thing as you. Just wait.
Do you exercises?
Yeah,
Eat real
stretch.
food. Eat real food, man.
Oh man, my only food for today was coffee so far.
All right, well, let's get
I'm
you out of
ready,
here.
man.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
This was
thank
really
you.
great.
Yeah.
We covered a lot of subjects that I usually cover, but in a very different way. And I appreciate you taking the time to come up here.
Of course.
And like just be yourself. And yeah, it's really awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see what comes next for you. You know.
Yeah, actually, I don't know what's coming next for me either.
No.
So, but the main thing is, as long as I have the energy, like honestly, the boredom to want to, like, as long as I'm bored, that makes me motivated to do even crazier stuff. That's my main thing. So,
All right. Well, thank you, Seji.
of course.
Thank you for watching and or listening to The Real Future, a Nyboer photography production. Video is available on YouTube and Spotify, and audio only is available at just about every other podcast outlet, including Apple, iHeartMedia, and Pocket Cast. The Real Future is dedicated to the Los Angeles street dance community and the culture as a whole. Keep moving and join me for the next episode.